To finish this series of videos, I want to speak a little bit about the risks of deep learning, which is a very popular subject these days. There is a part of this that's very difficult to speak about because we are speaking about the future and no one knows what will happen. Okay? So anything I say from here to the end of the video may be wrong. Take this into account. What I'm trying to do here is give my opinion, give an assessment based on my position as a, let's say, slightly more advanced user of deep learning and someone who has studied deep learning networks a little bit more than your average journalist, to interpret what's being said in the media and to give a view of some of the subjects that are being raised. But again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the future will bring. So this is just an opinion from me today in 2023. And I might be wrong. Also, the people boldly making predictions on mass media every day are very likely wrong too. Okay, but here is my take on the issue. Some of the risks of deep learning that are very frequently raised in mass media are, for example, the extermination of the human species via singularity, and there are even letters by very well-known and very famous deep learning researchers, like at this moment Hinton and Joshua Bengio come to mind, but there have been others, where there is some indication that this might be something that they are thinking about. Personally, I do not think this is a possibility that's realistically in the short term, because as I have mentioned already, I think the applications of deep learning are very narrow at this moment, and deep learning networks can achieve some very amazing tasks, but only in things that we have defined very, very narrowly. So many of the things that we associate with human intelligence are way far out of reach from what deep learning networks can do, in my opinion. Those guys, for example, Bengio and Hinton, know way more about this than I do. Does that mean that they are right? Well, maybe not. They are also not affirming these things clearly. They are calling, let's say, generally for regulations, and these are guys that might conceivably be interested in directing those regulations. So maybe by placing themselves at the forefront of this call to control AI and check its development and so on, they are also making sure that they have a seat at the table when those discussions are carried on. This is just a speculation. Sorry, I don't know what they are doing. They know much more about this than I do, but I don't agree with some of the let's say slightly more sensationalistic postures that they have taken. And to be fully precise, probably that's not what they have done, but they have placed themselves in a position where the mass media have exploited their opinions and their letters calling for greater regulations in a way that's sensationalistic. So, well, this is a controversial subject, but I don't think we are going to be exterminated anytime soon by a sentient AI, because I think a sentient AI, if at all possible, is way, way, way far into the future, and I don't think it's possible with the current technology. Similarly, there are lots and lots and lots of news and articles about all the jobs that will be lost due to deep learning, how we will all end up in unemployed because of deep learning and AI doing our jobs. I think this, as a previous thing, is widely exaggerated because there are some jobs that are being outsourced to AI systems, and that is happening. But again, for many things, human presence is still possible. There are some AI systems to create music, but mostly they suck, and they can do things in music. They can clean up old recordings and detect the voice of one particular person, as the Beatles have done recently. Yes, that can happen. And that's probably a type of job that's way more convenient for a computer to do than for a person. They can write fake news way faster than humans ever could because they don't care if what they are saying is true or grammatically completely correct or interesting to anyone or written in a particularly inspired way. Okay, yes, they can do those things. They can probably write pieces of reporting that only convey very narrow and very specific information. Deep learning networks can do that probably very effectively. So yes, some jobs are at risk, but I think most jobs that people have do have this human component, these extra things that deep learning networks cannot do. Okay, so I'm not too worried about the extermination of the human species via singularity or the disappearing of jobs. Okay, but that doesn't mean that there are no risks involved in the development of deep learning. Deep learning is a new technology, and I hope I have given you a better view on what it does and what it does not and how it works. Okay? But it has a potential to develop many different applications, and those will have risks. Any new technology has risks. If you have a hammer, you can go and use it to hit people over the head with it, which is a risk, and deep learning has also risks. I'm not worried about the singularity, and I'm not worried about everyone losing their job because of deep learning. But because of deep learning, large amount of data are being processed in an automatic way. And that's very useful for many things, but we should also ask the question of whose data is that and why is it being used? Is it being used to detect patterns of, I don't know, political dissidents? Okay, I come from a country where I don't feel the political system is too friendly to some of the ideas that I have about how the political organization of the country should work. Does that mean that I will be profiled by the government using deep learning to identify people who think like me? That can somehow be done already, and that's not that dissimilar of Amazon taking my data and trying to identify a pattern to find out what to sell to me. Okay, and we should ask the question of whose data is used. Has the data been given to the companies using it? Some companies are just scouring the whole internet to find data. This is one of the problems with ChatGPT. Okay, are those companies free to use whatever private data that they want? Are they free to collect data however they want? And how are they going to use it? So yes, having limits on what data is used and how it is used, I think, is a good idea in general. And I will also go as far as say that it doesn't have that much to do with deep learning. It is just a big data issue, and deep learning plays a part as one of the tools used to process this data. So being aware of what happens to our data, how it is collected, and how it's used, I think is a general good idea. So one of the risks, we could say, of big data and of deep learning too. I said I'm not too worried about all the jobs disappearing because of deep learning, but some will disappear. Some have already disappeared. I don't know if call centers still exist, but anytime I try to contact some support person from a big internet company, I end up chatting to a usually not very good bot that basically directs me to the frequently asked questions part and makes the whole experience pretty bad in general. There used to be people were doing that job. From my point of view, not super exciting job, but I'm sure some people liked it and some people made their living out of it. What happened to those people? There are people going to be left behind. There are people who are going to lose their jobs. From my point of view, not at an existential level at this moment, but there will be some. And what happens to those people is something that we have to answer as a society. This could get bigger. What happens if someone really does crack the self-driving problem in a few years? That's definitely not impossible. Probably not a matter of 1 or 2 years, but I don't know. Maybe. Okay, what happens if that happens? What happens if in 10 years' time we don't need drivers anymore? Any driver, anytime. Well, we should find some way to give something to those people and to provide an answer for them, a social answer in each of our societies. That would also create massive changes in the way our cities work, in the way our industries work. Not so many cars would be necessary if we don't have to have a car parked in front of every door and moving for most of the time. We have lots of space suddenly. We have lots of places, parkings that we don't have to build anymore. These things can produce significant societal changes, and some people will be left behind. It always happens with technological change, and we should be prepared and we should be ready to give an answer to those people as a society, to find new things for them to do or to respond with the new wealth that is generated by these automatic systems where people are no longer necessary. Because who gets the money? If I don't need to employ drivers anymore, then do I, as a business person, collect that money and just run with it? Or do I have a societal responsibility to recirculate some of that, to care for the people that I have made out of, I have, let's say, made redundant suddenly, okay? Deep learning and AI technologies have the potential of massive societal change. Not in the Terminator way of seeing things, in my opinion, but they keep producing different changes, and we should be ready to act on those, and we should think about how to adapt as a society to these new situations. Okay, I don't think changes as big as self-driving cars will be happening anytime soon, but small changes have already started happening and will keep on happening. We have to be aware of what the technology is, how it works, and we have to think about how to adapt to the new situation. Perhaps that is what Hinton and Joshua Bengio and all of the other big deep learning luminaries are saying. If that is so, I completely agree. Okay, and that's it. There are many more subjects that we can speak about, and maybe depending on the feedback that I get from these videos, maybe I will make some newer videos. But for now, this is the end of my set of videos about what is deep learning, what its history was, how we can use it, and how it's affecting our societies today.